Hi, I'm Ryan Johnson with the Guild of Blades Publishing Group. We're making a video today about our Empires of History game, Stalingrad, from our compact game series. Stalingrad is a small format game. It comes in a small box. The game also comes with your main map here and your two-piece Stalingrad blow-up map. 6 pages of rules, and you also get 136 of these little chipboard cutout counters. And all of that, and the price on Stalingrad is $7.99 or $7.95. I'm sorry. We've set up a start. What you're seeing here on the table here is Stalingrad's starting setup before gameplay starts. We're not actually going to play a whole game here on the video, but we're just going to talk about the game a little bit. The objectives is pretty simple. Germany wins if the German forces can punch through the Russian lines, get to the city of Stalingrad here, and then take over and eliminate all Russian units from the interior of the city itself. The Russians win if they still hold Stalingrad and have actually pushed the Germans back and taken any of the cities on the map that Germany starts with. Gameplay for Stalingrad is pretty simple. There's a variety of different kind of units in play: infantry, mechanized infantry, armor, artillery, paratroopers. Only the Germans have the paratroopers for this game. Snipers, fighter planes, bombers. The Germans also have 2 SS armor, airfields, militia. Only the Russian player has militia, and Siberian infantry, which are elite reinforcements that only the Russian players can get. There's only a 2-player game. 1 player plays Germany, 1 player plays Russia. Each game turn is broken into a number of simple phases for fast gameplay. You got phase 1, naval movement. The game actually has no naval counters. Naval movement simply are naval movement rules which allow the Germans to move from territories here and here across the Black Sea, and allow the Russians to move some troops by ferry across the Caspian Sea. Air movement is for basically fighters and bombers, and they can do a number of things. Fighters, more or less, are only to escort bombers in this game. They can attack ground troops, but they're not particularly efficient at it. Bombers are much more efficient at attacking ground troops, but they get chewed up in the air pretty quickly against enemy fighters if they have no escorts. Then, of course, phase 3, you move to air combat, resolve all air combats, and then eventually go to phase 4, land movement. Now, land movement generally is you have various troops. 1 and 2 movements are your movement allowances on the map. It's a very large scale map, so you're covering a lot of ground across all the Caucasus Mountains, upper Caucasus Mountains here, from the Black Sea to beyond Stalingrad. So each of your territories is pretty big. So movement is in pretty small numbers, 1 and 2 moves generally. This game does use a term called zone of control, which means say I have a 2-moving unit and I'm right here. Because I'm next to an enemy unit, I'm within that unit's zone of control, which means I won't be able to move more than 1, even though my unit might have a movement allowance of 2. This prevents fast action flanking, and it brings an extra strategic element to the game. The land combat is pretty simple. Land combat is if I'm like, say, the Germans, and I bring some of these troops from here and here, and I move into this territory here. Each of these ground units, per se, and these armor are going to have an attack value and a defense value. Values might be as low as 2, as high as 5, 6, or 7 on a D10. So if I was, say, had 3 troops attacking, and let's just say, for this sake, I see on the map 1 of them is a German armor. The game tells me that a German armor unit, attack of 6 and a defense of 7, because the German armor would be attacking, the German would only have to roll a 6 or lower on a D10, so simply roll the D10 and roll the 2. So that 2 would have meant I would have killed 1 of the Russian units I was attacking. The Russian unit would get a defense, depending on which Russian units you're talking about. In this scenario, you're looking at 2 different Russian units defending, so both the little militia guy and the infantry unit would both get rolls. And each of those guys would have a roll on a D10 or less they would have to hit. And if they roll that number or less, then they would destroy 1 of the German units. Each side gets to choose its own casualties. You just repeat that process until the attacker decides to quit, or at the end of any round, or until one side is eliminated. The combat's pretty simple. After combat, you move. After combat, you go to aircraft rebase. So all those fighters and bombers you flew around, which the game doesn't really have a huge number of fighters and bombers, but they can have a big impact on the game. They must land. So you can't really fly your fighters and bombers anywhere you want. You have to fly them in such a way where you have enough movement allowance left to land at an airport or a city. There are some counters in here called airfields. These are units that can move. There's support, represent the support crew for aircraft, so they can make makeshift airfields anywhere on the map. Otherwise, every city on the map is also a valid airfield. Phase 7, once both sides have had the opportunity to attack and do the previous mentioned phases, then both sides get reinforcements. In this game, as you see on this little on the little chart here on page 3, and on the followed up on page 4, for your first 9 turns, each side has set reinforcements. For instance, just an example, on turn 1, Russia receives 5 militia, 2 artillery, and an infantry, whereas Germany gets 2 mechanized infantry, an artillery, and a bomber. Because this represents the German offensive, generally speaking, the Russians are going to get a larger number of reinforcements than the Germans, and that's going to pretty much remain true for the bulk of the game. After 9 turns of play, starting on the 10th turn, you get, as a player, you get to choose what kind of units you want for reinforcements. The German player is going to get 3.5 points. The Russian player is going to get 5 points. And then you could, for example, you can spend a half a point on a militia if you're Russia. Both sides can spend 1 point on an artillery, an infantry, and air base, 1.5 points on a mechanized infantry, paratrooper, or sniper, and 2 points on the armors, fighters, and bombers. So you're really not looking, unless you're buying a lot of militia of the Russians, you're really only looking at a handful of reinforcements that you get after turn 9. So this represents that your armies are getting pretty exhausted from the long siege of Stalingrad. There are a couple extra rules in here. We're not going to go into big detail here, but you got bombers, carry cargo, you got destroyed air bases. But the basic theme is, as Germans, you just have to drive here to Stalingrad. There is another tactic you can try. There is a rule about Russian and their oil. They do get oil down here from the Caucasus, so they must get the oil from Grozny in the Caucasus and up to Astrakhan. If for any reason they lose one of these cities, the Russians will no longer be able to build or place armor or fighters, which will put them at a big disadvantage. So Russia definitely has to concentrate its defense on holding Stalingrad, because if they lose Stalingrad, they lose the game. But if they lose either of these two, they're going to lose their oil flow from the Caucasus Mountains to Stalingrad, and it's going to be a lot harder for them to defend Stalingrad itself. Basically, you see the map has two different maps. We have the main game map here, and then we have the Stalingrad blow-up map. It's a two-piece connection, shows lower and upper Stalingrad. There's a few key elements on here. There's represent buildings and urban development. You've got a couple staging grounds where Russia can build new troops. Those are tactical zones, like this one says tactical right here. And then, of course, Russia can only build the new aircraft on this particular city if they have the airport zone. So once the German troops have penetrated deep enough on the map to actually reach Stalingrad, you don't just take a territory on the main map. Like every other territory, if I'm Germany and I kill this guy here, and my armor takes this territory, I now own the territory, and this guy's dead, so we plop him over here. But once you reach Stalingrad, it's a different scenario. If I'm on territory 63 here, and I want to move into lower Stalingrad, I have to refer to my zone map here. If you look on the little Stalingrad map here, we see number 63. So 63 borders all of these territories here. So I can enter Stalingrad map here, 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 or here. So I have some choices of where I'm going to enter Stalingrad. And even my troops can enter at different places if I wanted to enter at different places. So once you get your troops into Stalingrad, it becomes a tactical battle for the city itself. That's pretty much the heart and base of the game rules. It's a pretty simple game. You get a lot of value for your $8. On page 6 of your rules, you'll find out all the information you need, giving you the movement, attack, and defense of all your units. Pretty much it. So, hope that gives you some more information about Stalingrad. Besides what we have on our webpage or our video, feel free to drop into our forums and ask away. We check every day, and we'll answer any questions you have.